550,000?
Yes, there's 500, 550, and then there's a 350, and then I believe there's a 50,000, Your Worship.
And you're saying these amounts went from which account to which?
From Quality Meat Supplies into the account of Mr. Willemse. That was now between 21 July through to 8.
So there's a 350,000.
There's a 500, and there's a 550, and there's a 50,000. So, and we know at that time, Your Worship, Arongo was still in business with NAMCOR. And from the investigations, this money was also coming from Arongo into Quality Meat Supplies, and then from there it get dispersed to Mr. Willemse's personal account. And not only Mr. Willemse, there were also similar transactions going to Mr. Muharukua, Your Worship.
Okay. Mr. Inamba, before we proceed, I think it's relevant for us now to break down these entities, their owners and their connection amongst other things. Let's start with Enacon, perhaps just to understand things. Who were the directors or owners of Enacon and their relationship with the other entities?
Enacon, as indicated yesterday, the directors or the shareholders there are Mr. Malakia and Peter Elindi.
Eco Trading?
Eco Trading, at the time of the offense, it was 100% owned by Smaneka Victor Malima. Arongo Petroleum was owned by, at the time of the offense, it was owned by Mr. Leon Nanda, who's one of the accused persons. But the beneficial owner in that regards was Mr. Austin Elindi, the son of Mr. Peter Elindi. Quality Meat Supplies did indicate yesterday that it's owned by Ms. Hileni Hileni Itana. That relationship, we haven't established it, but as far as the beneficial ownership is concerned, it's for Mr. Malima.
Oshali Fuel?
Oshali Fuel, it's 100% in terms of beneficial ownership owned by Mr. Malima. The name of the current owner or the person who owns Oshali at this time, Your Worship, it's still under investigations, and we don't want to compromise the name.
Okay. There is an entity that ceded its debts of 73 million to
EcoFuel Investment.
EcoFuel. Who owns EcoFuel?
EcoFuel Investment, it was owned by Martha. I'm just trying to make sure that I have the names right, Your Worship. There is a Johanna Munjeko and Martha Antindi. One of them is I believe is a biological mother to Mr. Smaneka, and the other one we suspect is a sister. So in the end, Your Worship, these entities are all related. Rather, the owners of the entities, they are basically from one family.
Okay, you can continue.
Just to refresh my mind.
Okay, all right.
But where did I?
We were at the part where you were breaking down the amount of 350,000 that went into Mr. Willemse's account, 500,000, 550,000, and then 50,000. And you said at that time Arongo Petroleum CC was still doing business with NAMCOR. And you can continue.
Thank you, Your Worship. Your Worship, I want to indicate that the investigations is still ongoing. and we have not completed a comprehensive financial analysis. But from the bit that we have done so far, investigations has also determined that between 2 November 2022 through to 18 December 2022, Mr. Willemse received an amount of a little close to 1.2 million in terms of cash deposits that was executed by Mr. Connie van Wyk in his two accounts, the Standard Bank account and as well as the First National Bank account. And Your Worship,
between 2 November and 18 December, Mr. Willemse received an amount of
a little close to 1.2 million. I believe it's 1.160 or something like that, but we can round it off to 1.2.
You say these were cash deposits made by who?
By Mr. Connie van Wyk.
Okay.
Your Worship, and I want to bring you a little bit back as to, or rather introduce you to Connie van Wyk. Connie van Wyk is one of the accused persons in this case, Your Worship. It's public knowledge that he's on bail. This person at some point worked as the acting chief executive officer for NAMCOR, Your Worship. Your Worship, so far we are talking about the transactions which went into the account of Mr. Willemse. But there were also cash withdrawals happening from the accounts of NAMCOR, from the accounts of eco trading, eco fuel investment and eco trading, and so forth and so on. This person, being an employee of NAMCOR, Your Worship, was depositing money into the account of Mr. Willemse. And both NAMCOR and Arongo at that time were receiving, were still very much active clients of NAMCOR.
Can proceed. Are you done? Can we get to another aspect?
Yes, we will move on to another aspect. I believe I've addressed the two issues of NAMCOR, the asset purchase and as well as the supply of fuel. It's perhaps to indicate to the court that when the 35 million was paid back to NAMCOR, it meant the account balance of NAMCOR was back to zero. Meaning, they could take fuel again because they were, they would be within their credit limit. Your Worship, if I can just indicate that by the end of November, the account of NAMCOR's debt had again risen.
December which?
December 2022. The debt of NAMCOR had risen to 35 million again. So meaning they exceeded their credit limit, which was 15.5 million. So they were back in the same position that they were before the assets were sold to, or before NAMCOR bought the assets from them. Your Worship, in terms of the evidence, there is an indication that by the end of July, if one takes into consideration
July which is?
July 2022,
Yes.
if one takes into consideration of the debt that was ceded by Ecofuel Investment CC to NAMCOR of 73 million plus the 35 million fuel that they received, at that point in time, the exposure to NAMCOR would have been 108 million. So despite having settled that account in July, by December, that account or the exposure was back to 108 million again, Your Worship. Because NAMCOR was allowed to take fuel again from NAMCOR from August through to December of 35 million.
Can we proceed?
We can proceed.
Yes. I just want to alert you or to ask you something. Are you, during your investigations, did you come across what is called the credit policy of NAMCOR?
That's correct.
Okay. What did you uncover? What is the credit policy and what does it govern in terms of the agreements between NAMCOR and its customers?
Your Worship, as far as the investigations was able to establish, is that NAMCOR has the credit policy, which is the policy that governs, the relationship between NAMCOR trading or NAMCOR and its customers. And when I'm talking about customers, Your Worship, I'm referring to, among others, Enacon and Arongo. So in this regards, this piece of policy, Your Worship, provides guidelines or at least directives as to how customers are onboarded, what type of evaluation or considerations are done before a credit limit is set or provided to a customer, among others. It also provides for the credit committee, Your Worship, and what type of decisions they need to make, and so forth and so on, and the composition of the credit committee as well, Your Worship. Furthermore, Your Worship, this policy also it provides as to the remedies that are there to ensure that NAMCOR's interests are protected. For example, if a customer exceeds the credit limit, what mechanisms should be put in place or are to be put in place to avoid further exposure?
We have now established during the testimony of the applicant, Mr. Willemse, that he indeed accepts or agrees he was a member of the credit committee. And amongst other things, the people who made up the credit committee is the applicant, Mr. Willemse, Ms. Jennifer Mkwaya, and Ms. Dunaiski. But I just want to find out from you, during your investigations, and I'm putting this in context with what Mr. Willemse said, that there was an anomaly in the credit policy, as he said. What did you find out from NAMCOR with regard to that?
Your Worship, I'm not aware of the anomaly that Mr. Willemse gave to the court. But what I can confirm, Your Worship, is this policy was in force. This is the policy which NAMCOR was using. Meaning, at the time, that is the policy that should have been followed. Whether there were gray areas or anomalies, that was the policy in place, Your Worship.
In terms of the remedies, if you can recall, and I'll refer you to the document, but if you have a good recollection, what remedies were available to NAMCOR in the event a customer exceeds their credit limit?
Firstly, Your Worship, in order to avoid any potential or rather further exposures, the first one is to block the customer, so that no further supply of fuel is made to that customer, because the entity, or rather NAMCOR in this regard, NAMCOR trading would be further exposed. And Your Worship, part of having provided the credit guarantee, which was always determined as the credit limit, it meant that NAMCOR trading could actually go and demand the guarantee and therefore mitigating their losses. So of course, one will, say, engagements with customers, it's part of, I'm not sure whether it's in the process, but I'm sure there would be some engagement with customers. But for now, it's the credit guarantee, enforcing it, and as well as blocking the customer.
I just want to find out from you, were you able to find out, as we stand here today, what is the total debt owed by Enacon to NAMCOR in terms of the fuel supply agreement? What is their debt? Your Worship, when I began testifying yesterday,
I confirmed that we obtained invoices and purchase orders that were submitted. I mean, let me start off with the purchase orders that were submitted by Enacon to NAMCOR Trading for the supply of fuel, and we were able to obtain invoices that NAMCOR had issued to Enacon for the fuel that they supplied. And our reconciliation, Your Worship, was 35,767,000,000, if I'm not mistaken, and a couple of hundreds on top. So we haven't gone back to go and see if Enacon had made further payments there.
Just take that again, the amount?
It's 35 million. 767.
And Arongo Petroleum CC, as we speak, what is their outstanding debt to NAMCOR?
Your Worship, maybe before I go into the outstanding debt of Arongo, maybe for me to start off with where Arongo started in terms of our investigations, because I haven't spoken about it yet.
Yes, okay, we're going to get to that, but yes, you can proceed.
Your Worship, since Arongo Petroleum was part of the reported allegations, in fact, of the 277 million at the time, I believe 238 million was in respect of Arongo Petroleum. So, Your Worship, during the investigations, we were able to obtain the same on Arongo, purchase orders, invoices, and we reconciled them to the balance of 238 million, Your Worship. Hence, initially when the case was reported, the allegations was that it was altogether 277, but we were able to bring it down to 274 million based on the reconciliation of the invoices that we were provided with, Your Worship. Your Worship, we found evidence that Arongo had been a customer of NAMCOR since somewhere in September 2020, Your Worship. And they had a credit limit of 3 million. And they operated with that credit limit, Your Worship, until November 2021, when they requested or applied to NAMCOR for the increase in the credit limit. And their limit was increased to 10 million. That was during November 2021, Your Worship. Coincidentally, Your Worship, this is around about the same time when Enacon was also onboarded the first time as a customer of NAMCOR. Your Worship, part of the agreement in terms between NAMCOR and Arongo Petroleum was that Arongo Petroleum would provide the credit guarantee of the same amount, which is 10 million, which they did, Your Worship. They provided two guarantees, one for 6 million and another one for 4 million. And then it was business as usual, meaning NAMCOR continued supplying them fuel, and of course, they were making payments. I must indicate, Your Worship, that the credit guarantee of 4 million was also cancelled. The reasons are not known as to why that was cancelled, which left only the credit guarantee of 6 million in force. I must indicate, Your Worship, that although the credit guarantee of 4 million was cancelled.
I'm sorry, do you know when it was cancelled, the 4 million credit guarantee?
I cannot give the exact date, but it was cancelled as soon as it was brought somewhere in November 2021.
continue.
Yes, Josh. Despite the credit guarantee having been cancelled, the credit guarantee of 4 million having been cancelled, Your Worship, the credit limit remained at 10 million, meaning NAMCOR was exposed to 4 million should Arongo Petroleum not honor its debt, because they had in place a guarantee of 6 million, but the other 4 million would have been, an exposure which would have required them to follow other legal recourse to collect the 4 million. As indicated, Your Worship, we looked into the affairs of Arongo, where we reconciled the invoices, which came up to an amount of 238 million. And upon conducting an internal investigations by NAMCOR, they demanded the credit guarantee of 6 million, which reduced the exposure, I believe, to 232 million, Your Worship, because it would be a difference of 6 million. Your Worship, if one takes into consideration of the limit of Arongo, so that is they were supplied with fuel between August, not between August, Your Worship. For Arongo, it's between December 2022 and May 2023. So if one takes in account of the fuel that they were supplied with, of 238 million, this was at least 228 million above their credit limit.
It was how much above the credit limit?
228 million, because their credit limit was only 10 million. So when they had received fuel of 238 million. And Your Worship, we know in terms of the evidence that we have gathered that the process of NAMCOR required the customer to initiate the request for fuel. So, and if a customer is above the credit limit, business can still make decision whether to allow or disallow that customer. So we know that as far as Mr. Willemse is concerned, Your Worship, there are 3 purchase orders in which he was involved to approve for Arongo. In fact, Your Worship, before I go into the purchase orders that were approved, as far as our information or evidence is concerned, when customers receive fuel, NAMCOR would invoice these customers per load, meaning a tanker comes in at NAMCOR, they collect fuel, and invoice is issued. So that was the process. But we know that in terms of the evidence, from August 2022, Mr. Willemse instructed the National Oil Storage Facility only to invoice Arongo Petroleum once a purchase order is completed, instead of invoicing them per load.
Is this contained in anything, or where did you get that from?
Yes, we interviewed the staff members of NAMCOR, including the staff members of the National Oil Storage Facility, and there were instructions by emails from Mr. Willemse where he instructed them that Arongo must be invoiced only once a purchase order is completed. So which meant that, Arongo could come and collect fuel without being invoiced per load. And by the time you go and invoice them, the exposure would have been much bigger. So I know in terms of the purchase orders that we were able to pinpoint as far as the approval of Mr. Willemse is concerned, is purchase order number 113. I can't give the date as to when that purchase order was done, Your Worship, but I know in terms of the value of that purchase order is at least 26 million. That is how much fuel was supplied to Arongo Petroleum in respect of that purchase order. There's purchase order 117, Your Worship. 117. This purchase order is a purchase order, I believe it's only one invoice, and that is 2.9. 2.9 million. And the third one is purchase order 119. And the value of fuel supplied in respect of that purchase order is 30,888,000.
30 million.
888. Your Worship, as I indicated, we interrogated the system, we interviewed the staff members, and they were able to produce these records to us, which indicated Mr. Willemse was involved as far as the approval of fuel above the credit limit to Arongo, specifically, Your Worship, in respect of those purchase orders which I've mentioned. He was involved with the acquisition of the assets from NAMCOR, from Enacom by NAMCOR. Your Worship, and the money that was seen on his personal account, at many times, this was money that was coming from Arongo into quality meat supplies. Basically, it's money that was being laundered through quality meat supplies, Your Worship. And eventually it lands into the personal account of Mr. Willemse. This is evidence that we have gathered, Your Worship. Your Worship, when I started with my testimony, I indicated that we had received also allegations. In fact, they were first ones as to Mr. Willemse's financial affairs that we were looking into, which required us to look into his tax assessments as well, Your Worship. And I must confirm before the court, Your Worship, that it's not only Mr. Willemse that we are looking at. It's everybody that is involved in the case, whose affairs we are looking at. And Your Worship, in which we had gone to NAMRA and requested for an investigation to be conducted, or that side, to see what was happening there. Your Worship, it was established from the financial records of Mr. Willemse, this in terms of the analysis that we have done, Your Worship, that at least in terms of the revenue side, Your Worship, we know that he had received over 61 million Namibian dollars, Your Worship. And it was found that he's liable for at least 20 million. That has not been paid to the state. Your Worship, we also now know that there were the only declarations that was made from...
He's liable for over?
Come again, Your Worship?
He's liable for over?
20 million.
Okay. You may proceed.
Your Worship, during the period 2018 through to 2023, Mr. Willemse had only declared revenue of a little less than 2 million.
Which period, sorry?
2018 through to 2023 financial year. He had only declared revenue of a little below 2 million, when in fact his financial records had shown otherwise. Your Worship, investigations is still ongoing, and we know that in terms of the 61 million that he had received in his personal accounts, Your Worship, over 12 million were cash deposits. And Your Worship, what we are saying is investigations is still ongoing. We are still investigating. And in terms of the evidence that we have gathered, Your Worship, we believe Mr. Willemse was involved.
Just hold on. Are you aware? I'll get to the document. Are you aware that the applicant approached NAMRA for, if I can call it, a re-evaluation of his tax affairs? In other words, he raised an objection. Are you aware of those or anything to that effect?
Your Worship, I'm aware of that. And Mr. Willemse is also aware of that. In fact, Your Worship, further evidence that we have is, we list Mr. Willemse was being engaged by NAMRA. He visited one of the regional offices to go and revise his status. Or rather, revise the returns. So as far as the evidence we are having is currently he owes, or he didn't pay NAMRA at least over 20 million. In fact, Your Worship, this part of the investigations was very helpful to us as well, because Mr. Willemse was engaged by the authorities, in which he was requested to provide the records to substantiate his financial affairs. And part of the investigations, Your Worship, we obtained these records and we have gone through them. We didn't find any invoices whatsoever which talks about the funds which he has been receiving from quality meat supplies.
Just hold on. There is, Your Worship, I'm referring the witness to Exhibit B, which is a document from NAMRA. I just want to give it to you, and of importance, proceed to page 3 and 4, where he raised an objection. I just want to ask you if you are aware of that. Where he approached NAMRA and alleged what is on the document there. And on the 4th page, actually, it contains the tax assessments that he had submitted.
I wanted to look at the date, Your Worship, of the document here. Unfortunately, I'm not seeing the date, but we were made aware during the investigations that yes, Mr. Cedric had raised an objection as far as the assessment was concerned. But even more so, he had gone and revised his returns. I must indicate, Your Worship, that part of the documentations that we got through the authorities is that he had made declarations of him not being employed at the time. So, but the current position, Your Worship, of NAMRA, or of the evidence that we have, 20 million stands.
Are you done? I want us to get to another aspect. Okay. All right. I just want to bring your attention to the there is a document, Your Worship, that I just want to run through that document quickly. I know I dealt with the accused. It's on page 379 of the second bundle. 379. The big one.
Yes, I'm having 379, I'm there.
I asked the accused when I was cross-examining him, among other things that he said Arongo Petroleum CC was a good customer. But just look at that document and inform us what you see there. And of interest is the total unpaid balance, including interest. You can just inform us and what you also uncovered in your investigations.
Your Worship, I believe this document is one of the documents we obtained from NAMCOR to indicate, the amount of fuel the amount of fuel that Arongo had received, or rather was supplied to Arongo, also to show how much was received and what was outstanding. So I can confirm, Your Worship, as far as our investigations was able to establish, from 2020, when Arongo was onboarded as a customer, there were no issues, Your Worship, from 2020 through to December 2022. Problem started, Your Worship, after December. Even more so, Your Worship, during the investigations, when we found that there were money that was flowing indirectly from Arongo, indirectly via other entities into Mr. Willemse, and it's not only him.
Is there another aspect that you want to touch? I want us to proceed to the bank statement of quality meat supplies.
Your Worship, maybe, if I could just look at
yes,
on the same document, page 379.
Yes.
It's been a while since we took a statement from the staff members within the finance department at NAMCOR. But if my memory serves me right, if you look at the bottom corner, bottom right, those figures which are highlighted, if one adds them up together, they can come close to 266 million.
The ones that are highlighted
yes,
in dark gray.
Yes, in the dark gray. So, and you can see it has months on the far left, and the entity, of course, is Arongo. And I believe, for example, if you look at the second column, that could be an indication of how much fuel was received, and the third column is what was paid, and then the last one is what is outstanding, or what was outstanding for that month.
Okay. Are you done?
I'm done.
Okay. Your Worship, I want us to proceed to page 280 of the same bundle. It's a bank statement of quality meat supplies. Before I start with the transactions, amongst other things that were said by the applicant is that, well, it cannot just be pinpointed that quality meat supplies was a briefcase company, as I've called it, because it was doing business with an entity called NWR. Did you come across that information, that quality meat supplies was in business with NWR?
Your Worship, investigations is still ongoing, but we have confirmed the transactions on the account statement. Your Worship, from the preliminary analysis that we have done, it is perhaps good to indicate that the statement for quality meat supplies, I believe it starts from, I can't see the date here, but it starts from, I believe it's supposed to be the 1st of January 2022, and it runs through till page 287, which is, I believe, 31 December 2023. This is a statement for 2 years, Your Worship, which is contained in about eight pages. And Your Worship, what we have seen in terms of the preliminary analysis is that indeed quality meat supplies was receiving funds from NWR from January through to the first week of July 2022. From there, you don't see any other payments.
So
the first payment, the NWR, is on the 2nd of January 2022, and it goes until I'm just trying to get my hands to the date, until until the 1st, I believe, the 1st of July 2022.
Which is on page 2.
Which is on page 2 of page 281.
Yes, 281, sorry.
And what is interesting, Your Worship, if I can mention, for that period, you do not find any payment going to any, you don't find any payment going to Mr. Willemse. From January 1 through to the 1st of July 2022, there's no payment going to Mr. Willemse.
Yes, on page 281, I want us to proceed to the date of 15 July 2022. Are you there?
I'm there, Your Worship.
Okay, I just want us to run through those transactions. I'm sure some of them you see, but of interest to the case, you can just proceed and explain to us the flow of the money around there.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Yes.
Maybe just a step back. What I want to mention in terms of the payments that comes out from NWR, or that the credits that are being received on the account of quality meat supplies from NWR. Yes. You would notice a pattern. Every time there's a credit, there is a cash withdrawal. There's 2-3 times where you see the money going somewhere. And we tentatively looked at these transactions to see if at all, because part of the investigations is to follow the flow of the money. So you would see, for example, on the 12th of February, an amount of 453,000 is received from NWR. Immediately thereafter, 302 is made. But going back to your question, Your Worship.
And the stepping back, what is the relevance of that step back?
The relevance was to demonstrate that there is no money that is being paid to Mr. Willemse, and also to show that, every time when the money was being received, it was being withdrawn. More so in cash. There are 2-3 times that, payments were made to other individuals, but more so it was cash withdrawals.
Your Worship, I don't know if my colleague
Okay,
is
can we not talk over
cross-examining.
each other, please?
He can get his opportunity during cross-examination.
But you should, I will. But I want the witness to stick to relevant. He says there's cash, there's no payment to Willemse, irrelevant. There's cash withdrawals, irrelevant. What is the purpose of putting that irrelevant evidence before court? Let the witness just concentrate on relevant evidence and stop stepping back to irrelevant evidence.
My understanding is that he is highlighting his investigations.
So
Unless...
is he allowed to testify about irrelevant things?
Mr. Inamba, what is the purpose of you asking the question?
Your Worship, it might be irrelevant to him, but to us, for investigations, it's relevant. Because we needed to, number one, find out when these funds are coming, who is the recipient. But we know more so, these funds were more on cash basis. And Your Worship, it will even become relevant a little bit later, because you would see, from the 15th of July, there is no money coming from NWR anymore. Yet we know on the 15th of July, NAMCOR entered into an agreement with NAMCOR. And on that date, an amount of 150,000 is received. So we are simply trying to show that the evidence is there. I'm sure the defense can interpret it the way they want, but as far as the investigations is concerned, we are saying there were cash withdrawals. Maybe these were cash payments which were being deposited. I don't know.
Yes, you may proceed.
Yes, let's proceed to 15th of July, then we interrogate those transactions there.
Your Worship, on the 15th of July, you would see that there is a credit, Your Worship, which is page 281. 15th July, I believe it's transaction code 107, Your Worship. You would firstly see a credit coming into the account of 150,000 Namibian dollars from Arongo Petroleum. Immediately, once this credit was received, on the same date, Your Worship, you would see that the money left the account as a debit. and it's referenced CP Willemse, dash game and goats. And these funds were reconciled to Mr. Willemse's personal account, Your Worship. Your Worship, you would also see that on the 20th of July, immediately after the transaction which went to Mr. Willemse, you would see there's a credit balance of 1,470,000 which comes in. Immediately after this money is received into or these funds are received into this account, you would see a debit transaction of 500,000 which goes into Panduleni Farming, Your Worship, which was an entity owned by the husband to Ms. Hamkwaya. And immediately thereafter, Your Worship, on the same date, in fact, this is now, yes, on the same date, Your Worship, rather, Your Worship, on 20, is it 21? Yes, 21, Your Worship, you'll see a debit of 960, Your Worship, thousand. This is money referenced CP Willemse, Your Worship. And this money went into Mr. Willemse's Standard Bank account. Your Worship, if I could go to page 282, which is the next page, Your Worship.
Just hold on. There is a transaction still on 281. I don't know if, yes.
Oh, yes, thank you, Your Worship. Your Worship, my apologies. Your Worship, what I forgot to mention on the credit which comes from Eco Trading, referenced Eco Trading loan payment, Your Worship. This is part of the 9.5 that was paid by NAMCOR into Eco Trading. So, Your Worship, to draw your attention to the 27th of July, is it 26 July, Your Worship, is it? 26 July, you would see a credit balance of 350 coming from Arongo Petroleum. And on the 21st, this money is paid over to the account, or these funds are credited, or rather debited from Quality Meat Supplies and credited into the account of Mr. Willemse. Your Worship, you would also notice on the 18th of August, 2022, page 282, you would notice there's a transaction written Eco Trading, which is a credit, and immediately on the same date, on the 18th, it also goes out to Mr. Willemse, CP Willemse. Your Worship, towards the end of that page, I believe it's on the 1st of November, 2022, you would see a debit transaction of 550.
Is it 7 or first?
First, 1 November, which goes out to CP Willemse. But prior to that, Your Worship, you would notice that on the 28th of October 2022, there was a credit that was received of 555 from EcoFuel Investment. Which is one of the entities of Mr. Smaneka. And your worship, you would see also on the 8th, is it 8 or 7? Yes, on the 8th of November 2022, your worship, on the 7th, there's a payment which comes in of 50,000, and the next day on the 8th, Mr. Willemse's account, or CP Willemse, is credited with the same amount. I believe those are the payments that I was referring to, which were going into the account of Mr. Willemse.
Yes, just before we pack that aspect, you are aware that the applicant actually in this case produced a stock head of his livestock, and amongst other things, when during cross-examination was being asked, he said all what is depicted here is game and livestock that he was selling to Quality Meat Supplies. What is your comment with regard to that?
Your worship, during the investigations, we went to the Meat Board and we went to the Ministry of Agriculture, the Directorate of Veterinary Services, where we obtained the records of the head statement of Mr. Willemse. And not only did we obtain the records of the head statement, we wanted to understand, your worship, because some of the livestock may not be on the head statement. We wanted to understand if he had sold cattle, to whom and when. We also requested for copies of all animal movement permits that were initiated from Mr. Willemse or that he bought from someone. So, your worship, we know in terms of the evidence that Mr. Willemse had cattle, your worship, but as far as to whether he supplied meat, your worship, to Quality Meat Supplies, your worship, part of the invoices that he submitted to NAMRA, we would have found those invoices there because this money was credited in his personal account. And your worship, I believe during that assessment he was given, in terms of that piece of legislation, he was given ample time to ensure that he collected those invoices in order to substantiate his returns.
I just want to give you this document. I just want to find out if you have seen it. It's titled Register of Tagged Animals from Selected Head. It's actually a document that was produced yesterday. I want to find out if you have seen that document before. Have you seen the document before, sir?
Your worship, I have not seen the document before.
Okay.
However, we obtained the records from Directorate of Veterinary Services. I cannot confirm whether this document is the same as the one that we obtained during the investigations. But we did obtain records of the head the head statement.
Just carefully look at the document. Are you able to see on the face of it, on that document you can page through, when a specific animal is perhaps sold or moved out, or does that document indicate from what you can see on the document?
No, your worship, because in terms of the details provided here, you have the establishment, which I suppose is a farm where the livestock are being kept, and then you have the tag number, and then the date of the registration, the animal type, the class, breed, and the production type, and how many tags. So there is no specifications as to of this, how many cattle has been slaughtered, for example. That category is not here.
I want you to proceed to the first bundle. and let's proceed to page 177. The date is the 20th of July 2022. Are you there?
I'm there, Your Worship.
You just read to us what is shown there in the transaction description.
For which transaction?
The 20th of July.
20th of July.
Yes. In the
Okay,
first
Your
bundle,
Worship, there are two dates. There's a transaction date and value date.
yes, both. So 20th of July and then the 21st, transaction date and value date. And then the
Which
description.
page is this?
I'm trying
Pardon?
The page you are referring to?
Page 177.
I'm trying to get to the date, Your Worship, but this
Of the second bundle.
Of the first bundle.
Your Worship, I'm seeing a transaction which is dated in terms of the transaction date. There is a credit of 960,000,
Yes.
of which the value date is 21 July.
Yes, and the description, transaction description?
Transaction description, beef and lamb and game carcasses payment.
I just want to find out from you. We have seen that that transaction also appears in the bank statement of quality meat supplies, specifically on page 281. But I just wanted to find out from you. Did you get any documentation from the applicant of any, because the reference is beef, lamb, and game carcasses, but I'm interested in the permits in respect of the beef and lamb carcasses. Did you get any permits or any invoices from the applicant to show that that was indeed for that specific purpose?
Your Worship, in terms of the animal movement permits, we didn't get any records indicating quality meat supplies, but I think it's also an understanding that when a cattle is slaughtered, generally there is no permit issued by the DVS. So perhaps that could be, but we have obtained the records, the copies of the permits that were issued, the departures and the arrivals for Mr. Willemse in respect of that.
Could you just repeat that again? You have received
the copies of animal movement permits that we have obtained, Your Worship, but we could not link it to any quality meat supplies or Hileni Itana or Simaneka. Your Worship, also to add, investigations, when we receive documentations, we try to analyze them to make sure that, we are being objective. When we requested for the records of Mr. Willemse from NAMRA, we had taken time to go through these records to see if we could find anything also connecting any of these transactions, because then he had an opportunity to provide those records. We couldn't find them, Your Worship.
Let's proceed to page 181. The date is the 1st of November 2022. There is a reference QMS, and then the credit side, there is a 550,000. Again, perhaps the same question. Did you find any? The applicant says he was doing business with quality meat supplies in terms of supplying the meat, but I just want to find out from you. Did you find any documentation in relation to the 550,000 that is in the credit side of his account?
No, we didn't find the document, Your Worship. In fact, Your Worship, part of the investigations, that is why we even see the computer during the investigation. So the investigations is still ongoing. Maybe we will find it, maybe we won't find it. That I can't say. But for now, we don't have that record.
On page 182, there is a transaction of 8 November 2022. The reference is QMS. In the credit side, there is 50,000. Again, any documentation with regard to that, what he was doing with quality meat supplies?
No, Your Worship, we didn't find it.
On that page, still on 182, there is an amount of, on the 2nd of November 2022, just there, are you there, on top?
Page?
182, just there on top of that page. There is a description written, Cedric Willemse, SA, an amount of 200,000 sent to an account in South Africa. In fact, I had asked him, he confirmed. Now, I just want to find out from you, during your investigation, did you find out if the applicant or the accused in this case has any bank account in South Africa?
Your Worship, we know that Mr. Willemse has accounts in South Africa. You know, part of law enforcement, we need to engage with our counterparts, and we were able to determine also from this transaction, because part of the financial investigations is to follow where the money went, and we know this money went into a South African account belonging to Mr. Willemse. And this is not the only amount, Your Worship. I must indicate there are several other transactions where Mr. Willemse has been making payments. I think among them, even for one of the properties that he bought through Norton Inc., which I believe it's a law firm in South Africa, where some of the money was paid to.
Yes, you said accounts. Do you know with which banks he has accounts with?
Your Worship, we know of Standard Bank, we know of Nedbank, and we know of FNB. And I'm saying we know of you see, we know that one of his vehicles is financed by ABSA, if I'm not mistaken, Your Worship, as far as the records that we have.
Yes, in fact, that's what we had said. Yeah, but you can continue.
And the other vehicle is financed by Nedbank, South Africa. And these transactions, as far as from the contra data that we were able to gather during the investigations, we know that this went to, I believe, a Standard Bank account. But of course, we do have other intelligence that, he had, other accounts in South Africa as well. But sometimes intelligence, you cannot ask the people to give you an account number. But it's an area that we are still investigating. But that was confirmed.
On page 183, there is a transaction of 18 November 2022 with reference Connie van Wyk, cash deposit cattle. Again, because it's the send of cross-examination, but I just want to find out from you, any documentation that you got from Mr. Connie van Wyk or from the accused himself that shows that cattle to the value of 200,000 was bought? Did you find out anything?
No, Your Worship, we don't have this record, and we have gone through our records to see if there were any permits issued from or to any of the accused persons on the case. We didn't find any. That includes Mr. Connie van Wyk as well.
On page 185, the date is the 2nd of December 2022. This description, Connie van Wyk, cash deposit, farm rental.
Which date is that one, Your Worship?
2nd of December 2022, page 185. But of interest, I just want to know, did you find out if there was was Mr. Connie van Wyk renting a farm from the accused, or?
No, Your Worship. Like any of the other accused persons, when you speak to them, they have the right to, they exercise their right to remain silent, Your Worship. So we don't have that evidence. But we know that Connie van Wyk was an employee of NAMCOR, which was an active customer of NAMCOR. We know that cash withdrawals were happening also from Arongo. And we know that Arongo and NAMCOR were even at times operating from the same office.
Okay. So you are saying there was no rental agreement of a farm between Mr. van Wyk and Mr. Willemse?
Not that we could find, Your Worship.
Okay, because part of what the accused says is that he was unable to produce some documents, or most of the documents in fact, because you had seized his laptop on which his documents are. What is your comment?
Your Worship, we seized the laptop for investigation purposes, which forms part of the evidence. Whatever that we are going to find on the case, it becomes part of the evidence. I must indicate, Your Worship, that the specific laptop that we found at the residence of Mr. Willemse has a sticker on it, which I believe is written 27 May 2025. And it's having Hi-Fi Corporation. So at this point in time, we haven't interrogated the data to see if the data on that PC goes back as far as 2022. But we strongly believe this is a new laptop, unless otherwise. But based on that sticker which is there, I don't think it would contain the records, but we can't dismiss it until such has undergone forensic examinations.
I just want us to run quickly through the transactions. On the 7th, or let me rather start, the 21st of July, 2022. I just want to make sure on which page it is. Yes, on page 177. Are you there?
I'm there.
Yes, there is an amount of 337,442.50 cents. What is that? Claim Hamburg. What is that?
Your Worship, this is a property which was owned by Mr. Willemse. Yes. And we know that because we looked at the records. In terms of the evidence, it shows that this property was owned by Mr. Willemse. And this transaction of 337, you can see it comes from the balance. After the 960 was paid, this payment was made in respect of that house of Mr. Willemse. And Your Worship, we know that this house has been sold. It's no longer Mr. Willemse's property. It has been sold, and we know to whom it has been sold in that regard.
Are you in a position to say, if you are able to whom it has been sold to?
For now, Your Worship, I believe since the investigations are still ongoing, perhaps it's in the best interest that we don't disclose, because we know there's a lot of assets which Mr. Willemse paid, of which he even bought some from the very money that he received from Quality Meat Supply, specifically the 960.
Yes, still on the same page, 25 July 20...
Just before you proceed, what is the purpose of highlighting that particular transaction? I mean the 21 July, the Klein Hamburg.
Is to show that it was property bought from the proceeds of...
Okay. You may proceed.
Yes. There's a transaction of 25 July 2022, still on that page, 250,000. It says from Groot Driehoek Vlakte. Do you see that?
That's correct. I see the transaction.
Okay, yeah, from your investigation, were you able to establish from where the money was from?
Your Worship, we know that this money was going to a law firm here in Namibia. And this money was for the farm that Mr. Willemse purchased. In fact, he signed the deed, the sales agreement on the 9th of July, 2022, in respect of this farm. And we know that between the 9th of July and December and 8 November, we know that he paid at least 1.6 million in respect of this farm. So as far as the preliminary financial analysis we have done, we do have the records of the property, and we are still busy compiling a comprehensive financial analysis.
Yes, I just want to, the other transactions I will not deal with, but of interest, proceed to 186. There is a transaction, actually two of them on 6 December. It's 6 December 2022. It says Terraces, Willemse, Norton Rose, Fulbright Inc. In your investigations, were you able to uncover what that is?
Your Worship, this is the one property of Mr. Willemse in South Africa. I believe this is one of the properties that has recently been sold. At least we got information that Mr. Willemse was busy disposing of his house or his houses in South Africa. And the details that we got, it matches this description here, terraces or something like that, Your Worship.
In fact, when the accused was asked, during cross-examination, I just want to put this to you so that you know, he had said he sold those houses before this case, but in fact, yesterday, I was given this document, which is an email printout. I'm not sure if you are aware of it, but it's already before court. I just want you to have a look at it.
Just in context, I think what was put to Mr. Willemse was that, as I stand here, the house is still in your name. That is, my learned friend has put something now different to the witness. I just put him in context. That he said to Mr. Willemse, as we stand here, your houses are not sold. It's still in your name. Can I just put that in context, please?
Yes, that was on the 10th, but I just went 10th. In fact, I asked Mr. Willemse that on the 10th of September 2025, those houses or those terraces were still in his name, but in fact he had said they were sold long time ago. But I just want to give you this document so that you have a look at it. Your Worship, I'm referring to the email. I'm just not sure what exhibit it is, but it's that email that was produced yesterday during re-examination. Mr. Inamba, I just want you to, on the first page, do you see where it says, "Hi Boris, attached confirmation that both properties have been sold and transferred out of Mr. Willemse's name." But I just want to find out from you, as at the 10th of September 2025, what information did you have with regard to the property of Mr. Willemse in South Africa?
Your Worship, our information was short and brief that Mr. Willemse had two properties which were being sold. I believe one was undergoing registration and the other one was on sale. And Your Worship, as I was saying, this is intelligence. There was no other specific details that were given. The only thing which I am seeing on this email which is missing, Your Worship, they haven't provided a date, because from us when we receive intelligence, it means that was the present. And I believe that intelligence was shared with the prosecution somewhere around the 10th or the 9th, if the earliest, because that was around about the time that we had received the information. In fact, the bail hearing had already commenced.
And what is the date on which that email was sent?
This date, this email was sent on the 12th of September 2025 at 11:31, which was after the 10th.
Yes, I want you you to proceed to, it's actually the third page, but it's labeled page 1, but the third folio of that document. There is an email from a certain Antoinette Leroux, dated 31 July 2025. Do you see that?
That's correct.
I just want to find out from you, were you able to find any documentation that shows that indeed what they are saying is true, what the accused is saying, that the properties have been sold? But were you able to get any deeds of transfer or or anything that shows that indeed these properties have been sold in South Africa?
No, Your Worship. No, Your Worship, and I'm saying no because, investigations, intelligence is one thing, but where we request intelligence for us to use it as evidence in court, we need to make sure that the legal route is followed so that documentation is obtained from the other side of the border. We can come and use them here in court. And Your Worship, as I'm saying, investigations is ongoing, and of course, we intend bringing these documents, this evidence before the court by the time, this is finalized.
Just before I ask for an adjournment, the applicant actually said he does not have any other account apart from a Standard Bank transactional account in South Africa. He said, no, I only have a Standard Bank transactional account, so I don't have any other account there. What is your comment with regard to that?
Your Worship, I cannot argue with him in that regard, but we know that, the vehicles are financed from others. In terms of our intelligence, Your Worship, and people need to understand sometimes intelligence, they can provide intelligence even on closed accounts. So I cannot confirm, but once we have that evidence in our hands, we should be able to confirm as to whether this is the account number and so forth, how many of them, and so forth and so
on. Your Worship, I just need some time. I'll probably conclude after lunch, but I propose perhaps we adjourn for now, seeing that it's nearly 1 o'clock.
No objection.
Okay. We then proceed at 2 o'clock. The court is adjourned. You may proceed, Advocate.
Now, Mr. Inambao, just before we adjourned, I was busy with the applicant's bank statement. Now, I don't think I would want to proceed there. Most of the transactions I already asked the accused person, unless you have anything that of interest that you want to inform the court with regard to. We were at page 177, if my recollection is well, in the first bundle. Is there anything you want to mention around there before I proceed to the next aspect? So we can continue.
We can continue.
Okay. So I just want to find out from you. You had said there are emails that the applicant had sent to Ms. Jennifer Mukwaya, amongst others. Do you recall that?
That's correct.
Okay. What is the date you said? They are dated which date?
6. Of course, there are other chains of emails.
Yes.
But the specific interest was on the email dated 6 and 7 July 2022.
Okay. Now, Your Worship, with leave of court, I have copies of the emails here that I want to deal with this specific witness now. There is a copy, if there is no objection, just for the court to be able to follow, and then one I'll give to the witness.
There's no objection. We did receive these emails last night.
You may proceed.
Yes. Sir, do you have the document with you, sir?
I have the document.
All right. The third page, or if I say the third folio of that document, has an email dated 6 July. I want to start with 6 July 2022. Do you see it?
That's correct.
Yes. From who's the author of the email, or who sent the email?
Your Worship, you can see this was a response. Initially, there was an email that was sent on the same date, which is still page 3. The last piece, you would see is an email sent by Mr. Sam Hashela. But of interest is the email which is above. It's from Cedric Willemse, sent on Wednesday, July 6, 2022 at 26 minutes past 10, in which he's responding to Sam, indicating that since Jennifer is on leave and since we had deliberated on this, this will be totally self-funded and has been budgeted for. So no debt financing.
What was he referring to?
I believe, Your Worship, he was responding to the email from Mr. Hashela as he was busy compiling the discounted cash flow report or the feasibility study in this regard. Part of the inputs or the data that he needed to input, it was to know as to whether, this would be self-funded or whether, budget provisions needed to be made. And you can see, Your Worship, on page number 4, I believe there is a question that was asked, and hence Mr. Willemse was responding. And the email on page 4, Your Worship, from Mr. Hashela was written to Dear Jennifer, what financing assumptions should we base our assessments on this investment? Fully NAMCOR, reserve self-funded, or what portion would be debt financed?
All right, just for the avoidance of doubt, I see there on that document it said Cedric Willemse, and the accused is Cornelius Petres Willemse. Is it the same person or what?
That's correct, Your Worship. As far as our evidence is concerned, we know that Mr. Willemse was referred to as Cedric in this regard. So people in NAMCOR knows him as Cedric. So we are referring to the same person, Your Worship.
All right. I just want us to proceed to page 2, or the second folio of that document, that the email dated 7 July 2022, sent at 9:52 a.m. Just read to us from who was the email and to whom was it sent to.
The email was sent by Cedric Willemse on Thursday, 7 July 2022, 9:52 a.m. And it was sent to Sam, Jennifer Mukwaya, Michael Aipanda, Petrus Ainiko, Olivia Dunaiski, and Nesta Shefeni, and Davis Mafosa. And it reads, Olivia, please prepare submission to MD. In meantime, we can then add the DCF and the 2 times valuation reports. Also, please mention that the intent is that 25 million will be paid towards the debt reduction to reduce their debt.
Okay, do you have a comment with regard to that?
That's correct, Your Worship. We know following this email, Mrs. Dunaiski prepared an internal memorandum or submission to the managing director, in which the information requested here was also included in that memorandum, Your Worship, or in that internal memo.
Earlier on, you spoke about the 35 million. Here it mentions 25. Do you have a comment with regard to that?
Your Worship, I believe the debt of Enacon at that time, in terms of the evidence, was already at 35 million. But if I interrogate the thought or the grammar which is here, because towards the, if you look at towards the end of the sentence, it says 25 million will be paid towards the debt reduction. So I suppose the intention was not to fully settle the amount. That's all I can conclude for, but we know that they had paid the 35 million at the time.
Okay, and then on the first page of that document, it's an email sent on 7 July 2022 at 11:30 a.m. and it's from Cedric Willemse. Can you just read to us the contents of that email?
Olivia, please note, we want to present tomorrow to MD. Also, please slide in the submission. Our ultimate goal and this process is to step closer to the direct contract with MOD. And MOD in this regard was Ministry of Defense, but later it became Ministry of Defense and Veterans Affairs.
Okay, do you have a comment? What did you uncover in your investigation with regard to the contents of that email? What is written there?
Your Worship, this directive or this instruction was also made part and parcel of the memorandum, the internal memo submitted to the managing director by Ms. Olivia. And Your Worship, just to mention, the memorandum by Ms. Olivia was dated 8 July. So the instruction was received the day before.
Your Worship, I would like to apply that the emails, the ones of 6 and 7 July, that is a combination of other documents that is there, be received onto the record exhibit D1, if I'm not mistaken, because I think we should be at around exhibit D. The court can just assist me, Your Worship, the numbering of our exhibits.
We are at exhibit E.
E. Oh, my apologies. So are we already at E?
Yes.
So the next one should be F then?
Yes.
Okay. So this one will be Exhibit F1 because there are other documents that I intend to deal with.
Any objections?
No, please.
The email dated 6 and 7 July 2022 is marked Exhibit F1. You may proceed.
You also spoke about 3 purchase orders with the numbers purchase order 113, 117, and 119. Do you recall that?
That's correct, Your Worship.
Now, I just want to deal with them in the following sequence. Just want to hand them to you. Yes, let's proceed with purchase order 113. Are you there?
I'm there, Your Worship.
Okay, just tell us what appears on purchase order 113 and what is the date there on that document.
Your Worship, on the first page there is 6 January 2023. That is in respect of purchase order 113.
Yes, what is the amount? Is there any amount there, or what is the contents thereof?
Your Worship, in fact, the actual purchase order, not purchase order, the actual email, just quickly going through to verify the dates here. Okay. Because it's a chain of emails, I just want to make sure that the dates are. Yes, Your Worship, this purchase or this email or the purchase order was forwarded to NAMCOR because Arongo had exceeded their credit limit. So in terms of their procedures, if the credit limit is exceeded, the ordering customer would not be supplied with fuel because the request would have to be submitted to the credit committee in order for them to authorize, meaning an evaluation has to be conducted, and depending on the customer's behavior and the customer's conduct and so forth and so on, then they would the credit committee would take a credit decision as to whether to provide or to supply or to authorize the fuel in that regard. And Your Worship, we know in regards to this specific fuel order, it was one of the orders that was approved by Mr. Willemse on the 6th of January 2023 at 4:58 p.m., Your Worship. On the third page of the document, Your Worship, the email on top.
Is there any mention of an amount on purchase order 113 before we proceed?
Your Worship, there is no mention of the amount, but if you look at the last 2 pages, the very last page is the purchase order that was issued by Arongo Petroleum, in which they indicated the quantity of fuel that they required. And
which is how much?
In this regards, the quantity they needed diesel was 1,160,000 liters. And then from there,
1,160,000 liters.
And then The UPL, which is petrol, they needed 120,000 liters. And the second last page, Your Worship, this is the fuel order. This is a document that is generated by the stock administrators upon receiving approvals from members of the credit committee. And this fuel order was done as proof that the National Oil Storage Facility can proceed to supply fuel to Arongo, despite them having exceeded their credit limit, Your Worship. Your Worship, we know that in terms of the invoices that we were able to obtain relating to this specific order, Your Worship, they amount to a little over 900 or so. Hence, we rounded it off to 26 million worth of fuel that was supplied in this regard.
Seeing that the investing officer says that he has the invoice, is it not easier for the court also to provide him with that invoice to confirm? Because he has the fuel order, he has all that missing is the invoice, and according to him, he has the invoice. Can you just provide it for us so we also can, all of us can see? Because there's no amount on the purchase order as to how much the oil costs.
Are there any copies of this document that the witness is referring to?
Unless Ms. Hinda has it, because that's what was disclosed to me or given to me. Ms. Hinda has the other documents, but if need be, we can, in fact there is a need, we can avail that document. So I can dispense with that and go to another aspect while we get those documents.
That will be appreciated.
Yes. All right. Let's go to purchase order 113.
That was 117.
117.
117? Yes, Your Worship. Purchase order 117, Your Worship. The second last page.
Just before you proceed, is that purchase order, that's the one that Mr. Isaacs you're referring to?
Yes, the first one. He's going to the next
Can
one.
we perhaps have it in front of us? It becomes easy to follow. Otherwise, if we have questions
Yes.
when it comes, it becomes more difficult. There will be a repetition.
Okay, all right. I think we can put it on hold for now because I think we will have to. What I was given is just the emails, not the invoices thereof. I just want us to, before I proceed to the next aspect, Mr. Inamba, the emails that we have just submitted as Exhibit F1, what is their importance in relation to the asset purchase agreement? Just for the sake of completeness and also to put things in context. What is the importance of those emails in relation to the asset purchase agreement?
Your Worship, I believe the applicant among the charges he's facing is a charge of conspiracy. Your Worship, which in terms of the evidence, we were able to find evidence indicating that indeed there was a conspiracy between, ENACON and as well as staff members within NAMCOR, Your Worship. And part of that conspiracy is that Mr. Willemse himself was part of the staff members of NAMCOR. And we know in terms of this evidence, Your Worship, that he was involved as far as the acquisition of the assets. We know there was, he was involved from April, as far as April 2022, Your Worship, and this email is just to cement the fact that when the internal submission was done, he was aware of it, he had inputs in it. In fact, it's him who informed Ms. Olivia to prepare the internal memo. Your Worship, also it proves that the discounted cash flow report was sent to him because it was him who had arranged for that report to be compiled.
I just want to deal with the charges now. That relate to the applicant here. There is a charge of fraud, which is count 9, that involves the amount of 3,010,000. Are you aware of that count?
Can I have the figure again, Your Worship? Maybe
3,010,000. It relates to, I'll just read it to you. It relates to the accused having been the supply and logistics manager, that he had the authority to authorize supply of fuel above the credit limit of fuel to be supplied to Enacon, Namibia, and Arongo Petroleum CC. And then it says NAMCOR suffered an actual loss of 3,010,000, and the accused, when he so gave out, knew that he was committing the offense of fraud. Now, do you recall, in terms of the dates on which this fuel was supplied, the one of 3,010,000?
Your Worship, I'm just not very sure now as far as the 3,010,000 is concerned, because as far as the evidence has established is that NAMCOR was defrauded with the amount of fuel that was supplied to both Arongo and Enacon, which is at least 274 million. Of that, we know that Mr. Willemse approved 3 purchase orders, which is the 3 purchase orders, 113, 117, and 119, Your Worship. One is for the value of a little close to 26 million, whereas the other one is 2.9 million, and the other one is 30,888. So I don't know whether it was just maybe the technical errors in the charge.
Mr. Malk is not testify about the technical errors of the charge. He's just asked to explain. He's not the one drafting the charges, and he's not the one to give excuses of the technical error of the charges.
Now, I just want to move to another aspect. In terms of the asset purchase agreement, just to put that aspect to rest, was there...
Just before you proceed, so is the answer that the actual loss is now 3,010,000?
That's correct, Your Worship.
You had earlier on spoken about an amount of 30 million and 888. Do you recall that?
That's correct.
Okay. In relation to the charges, that is the alternative to count 9. When did that arise? That total amount of 30,888,581.50.
To be specific, Your Worship, we are referring to purchase order number 119, and as far as that is concerned, Your Worship, that approval or that purchase order was approved during April. I see on 6 April 2023, Your Worship, which is within the range of the time frame that we are talking when it comes to the time frame of the fuel that was supplied to Arongo Petroleum CC between December 2022 and May 2023.
Yes. In terms of the charge of money laundering, which is an alternative, it's actually count 50. count 15. It's the amount of 4,050,000. And let me just read it to you so that you understand. And that between July 2022 to November 2022, in the District of Windhoek, the accused ought to have known that the amount of 4,050,000 forms part of the proceeds of unlawful activities, while also knowing he received this amount of 4,050,000 from NAMCOR, Namibia, and Arongo Petroleum CC into his personal bank account held at Standard Bank with account number 241879442. Do you recall of such an amount?
Your Worship, I
Or is
know
it lesser?
I've spoken about various amounts. I believe if they are added up, they will come to that amount. Your Worship, this among others includes the 960, the 500,000, the 550, 350, and as well as the 50,000, Your Worship. So I believe the references was being made to the credits that were made from the account of quality meat supplies into the personal account of Mr. Willemse.
In terms of the acquisition of the assets, remember I took you to the schedule of authority. Do you recall that?
That's correct.
The one that speaks about the 25 million.
That's correct.
Yes. Now, during your investigation, is there any other document that you came across that actually speaks the same language as the one that is in the schedule of authority?
Your Worship, the one document that we were provided with during the investigations as a part of the evidence was the approved budget for the financial year 2022-2023 for NAMCOR, in which there were budget provisions made for asset takeovers. And in terms of the approved budget, there was an amount of 25 million. Your Worship, furthermore, in terms of the evidence, this includes from board members, they indicated that should there have been a need to move funds from one vote to another, approval should have been obtained from the board. And there was no such approval, Your Worship, obtained from the board. In fact, the board only became aware of this acquisition in April 2023, Your Worship.
Do you have a name of that document, if you can recall? What is the document called?
It's approved budget. Approved. I'm not very familiar with the name, Your Worship, but it's an approved budget, a capex budget for 2022-2023, Your Worship. Your Worship, perhaps to add also, yesterday I indicated that when an acquisition of this nature is made, there needed to be a budget verification before such an undertaking is made. During the investigations, there was no evidence, or we could not find the budget verification as well, which would have given a direction that indeed, there was budget provided for, funds are available, and so forth and so on.
I would like to give this witness a document titled NAMCOR Group Consolidated CapEx Budget for 2022-2023. There is no objection. That document has also been disclosed.
This was, if there's no objection, again, this document was received last night by email.
Can we proceed?
There is just one copy also for the court to be able to follow. Do you recognize the document, Mr. Inamba?
That's correct, Your Worship.
I just want you to refer to us on a specific page where what you have spoken about previously appears.
On page 2 of the documents, 2 of 4, If we look under the description column and scroll down or go down until you find asset takeover, just above the underlined retail sites, you will find an item listed as asset takeover.
Is the court with us?
Proceed, yes.
Yes. What is the amount there, sir?
If we look in, is it the row now? I'm not sure which one is the row, which one is the column, but if we look at the ones going down, under the trading and distribution subheading there, still highlighting the same subject, you would see that there is an amount of 25 million which was provided for.
Yes, on the further right.
On the further right also is the consolidated budget. You would still see that it's still the same amount, which is 25 million. And Your Worship, when the case was reported, this was one of the issues that was raised as well, that expenditure was never approved, it was never budgeted for.
All right. So in terms of the asset purchase agreement, the assets to the value of 53,212,000. What is the importance between this document and when we speak about the asset purchase agreement?
Your Worship, this document is a blueprint of the undertaking that NAMCOR had planned to do for that financial year in terms of, expenditures, meaning they had planned to do, among other things, to acquire assets when opportunities arise. So in this regards, there was provisions made for 25 million. And it was only 25 million that was made, Your Worship. Should the need have arisen for more, Your Worship, that process of seeking board approval should have been followed. So in this regards, Your Worship, taking it to the asset purchase agreement, it was within this financial year when NAMCOR bought the service stations from Enacon to the value of 53,212,000, which is almost 100%, Your Worship, in terms of how it was exceeded. And the board was not made aware of this, neither was an approval sought. They only became aware of it after it was anonymously reported to them in April 2023.
Your Worship, before I proceed to another aspect, I would like to apply that this document be received as a part of the record as Exhibit F2.
No objection.
This is the copy I have before me.
They are just basically the same, yes, the copy that the court has.
Okay, the copy of the NAMCOR Group Consolidated CAPEX budget for 2022-2023, page 1 to 4, is marked Exhibit F2. You may proceed.
Court pleases. Now, we'll get to those invoices 113, 117, and 119. But for now, I just want us to deal with one aspect. Now, do you recall that the day that the accused was arrested?
Yes, Your Worship.
And is it correct that the accused person was the first person to be arrested amongst all the other accused persons?
That's correct, Your Worship.
Okay, can you just explain why is that? Why was he the first one to be arrested?
Your Worship, generally there is no order of executing arrests. But in this regards, we already knew in terms of our intelligence that Mr. Willemse was a frequent traveler into SA. We also knew, in fact, when we started looking for them at some point, he was in South Africa. And the fear was, should we arrest the others, Your Worship? First, the likelihood of him not coming back or him, fleeing to South Africa was high on our agenda. Your Worship, as you know, as the case may be, we arrested him as the first person, first suspect, and the others were arrested within minutes, if not minutes, maybe an hour difference or so.
Where was the accused person arrested, and who arrested him?
Your Worship, we had been looking for the accused person, for the applicant, for a number of days, if not months, Your Worship, or weeks. We didn't have a known residence to find him, Your Worship. At some point, we knew that he was in Auckland Park, where he was arrested. For a lack of, I cannot remember the address, but we knew the morning that we arrested him. We knew, that's the only day that we knew where he was. Of course, as I indicated in the beginning when I started testifying, Your Worship, that this matter was jointly investigated between the Namibian Police and the Anti-Corruption Commission. So when we went to execute the arrests, we made sure that the arrests were affected by the members of the Namibian Police. In this regard, Your Worship, because we had applied for warrants of arrest, and in terms of the Criminal Procedure Act, it's only the peace officer or a police officer that could execute the warrants of arrest. Hence, such was executed by the police. People present, we had a lot of teams. The people present at the house of Mr. Willemse that day, it was myself, inclusive of other colleagues from ACC. We had a couple of warrant officers from the police, and we were later joined, while we were still searching, we were later joined by Commissioner Becker as well. And by virtue of his position as the senior official at that place, he had to be the one to execute the warrant. So Mr. Becker was the one who informed Mr. Willemse that he's under arrest, and he was handed a copy of the warrant of arrest, and the charges were explained to him, inclusive of his legal and constitutional rights.
What were the circumstances under which he was arrested? Was he peaceful? Did anything happen when you arrested him?
Your Worship, I can say it was peaceful in a sense that there was no violence whatsoever. But because we didn't know where he was, and upon knowing the house where he was, we couldn't get access to the premises. It meant the police members had to climb over the yard. Your Worship, over the gate, and eventually, get the people who were in the yard, and they, got the remote, they opened the gate. That's when we walked in. At that point, Mr. Willemse was in his room. His room was locked. We knocked and knocked. We were there for at least over an hour, if not 2 hours. Later one of the police officers that was together, part of the team, climbed to check in one of the windows in the room of Mr. Willemse, and he saw him in the bathroom. We had to threaten to break the door of Mr. Willemse. That's the only time that he opened the room. And when I'm saying we had to threaten, it's not all of us that will go be talking. We will be making a lot of noise. And since the warrant was being executed by the most senior officer on duty, or rather at the spot at that time, Mr. Becker was the one who asked him to come and open, or else we will force the entry. Your Worship, eventually after a very long time, Mr. Cedric opened. We didn't use force to enter the room. He opened. He was informed the reason why we were there. In fact, immediately when we got in that room, his phone started ringing. There were calls, if I'm not mistaken, and messages from Simaneka, Victor Malima, and as well as Mr. Mulunga. And we believe at that point in time, Your Worship, we least he was in that room. He was calling his fellow accomplices in this regards. And these are the people that we were looking at. In fact, Your Worship, it's only that I didn't look out for the records. From the time we arrested Mr. Willemse, it probably took less than an hour for Simaneka to go and cross at Oshikango. So after we arrested him, Your Worship, among other items that we seized from his house was his cell phones, we seized a laptop and a couple of documentations that were at his workstation. There he had a small table in the corner somewhere there in the living room, where we found a couple of documentations. I believe some of them is vehicle registration documentation. I believe there was a document for one of his recently acquired farm, is it Okamutambo or something like that.
What will your comment be when it will be put to you that you did not have a search warrant with regard to, or search and seizure warrant to take his laptop, I suppose, and his cell phone?
Your Worship, the law always makes provisions, and as law enforcement, we need to make sure that the integrity of the pieces of legislations we have in the country, they are upheld. The Criminal Procedure Act, I believe Section 23, it makes provision for an arrested person to be searched and for articles to be seized. I believe this was invoked, was one of the instruments that we invoked at that day to take the cell phones. So at no time did the ACC or the police seize these issues illegally. We made sure we operate within the law, and the law makes that provision. So we seized them as pieces of evidence, which is going to be analyzed, and the evidence will be presented to the court.
Before I move to another aspect, is there something you want to alert the court with regard to the events that happened when you arrested him?
Perhaps, Your Worship, maybe to mention, like everyone else that was arrested, everyone else who's an accused person that has been arrested, they've always been asked to get their medical, if they have prescription medicines. Such must be taken with them. In fact, the words that were used is the police, such would be handed to the police at the station so that the medicines can be administered in terms of the required intervals. Mr. Willemse was informed of this, and I remember it was Mr. Becker who asked him if he had any prescribed medicines, and he said he's having diabetic, and he was told to take the medicines. He elected not to take the medicines. When he was brought at Windhoek Police Station, Your Worship, I visited him, I believe when we were bringing one of the accused person, I found him there and I asked him the question, did you make arrangements for your medicines? Because the sister was there. In fact, Your Worship, one of the lawyers which was engaged for him by his family, I believe it was the sister, I believe his advocate, Engelbrecht, visited our office just before 3 or somewhere there, shortly after 2, and requested to speak with Mr. Willemse. And we allowed him. Not allowed him, Your Worship, it's his constitutional rights, because even when he was arrested, he was informed of that right. Mr. Engelbrecht went to Windhoek Police Station, had the conversation or discussion with him. We were not there. Just to mention, Your Worship, also, when he was charged at Sears, I believe that was the next day, I inquired from him about his medications as well.
All right, let's proceed to the events of 11 July 2025 when the accused was admitted to CMS Hospital. What happened?
Your Worship, I believe I was here at court on that fateful afternoon when I received a call that Mr. Cedric or Mr. Willemse was being escorted to the hospital in a Mercedes-Benz, I believe it's GLE 63, white, an SUV. Myself, and I believe this was on a Friday, so some of our colleagues at ACC were busy practicing for sports. So myself and 2 officers from the Namibian police responded to go and see what is happening. How is a trial awaiting inmate being transported in a private vehicle? In fact, I remember I called the officer in charge on that day before I got there. The 2 officers arrived before I got there, Your Worship, and we found them at the gate. Mr. Willemse, fortunately, he was in the police van. It's a single cab, so he was in the back of the van. But there was the white Mercedes-Benz was right behind the van. It's the one which was now escorting the police vehicle. In that vehicle, there was 1 uniformed member, without disclosing names, and a reservist who was wearing in civilian clothing, Your Worship. We stopped them there. In fact, the colleagues from the police, since are the ones who got there, I found them already talking to the guys, and I spoke to the officers at the gate, and as well as to the police officers, specifically the one that was in the Mercedes-Benz, because he was the senior officer. And then he had explained that they didn't have vehicles. In fact, the vehicle that they are using, the police vehicle, they had borrowed it from Glen Windhoek. But because they were trying to remember the number, whether 3 or 4, Your Worship, speaking under correction there, they couldn't fit in the single cab. And neither could they, I believe they were plus the driver, there were 3, so there was 2 in front with the other driver. So, and they said this was the reason why they had to ask the reservist to use his private vehicle to go and assist. Your Worship, we cautioned them against that, and we said, look, how does it look coming to pick up a trial awaiting prisoner in such a car? We are government institutions. If the police need assistance, we have been working together with this, on a joint operation, they could have called upon us and we would have assisted. There was a bit of misunderstanding between the colleagues before I got there, Your Worship, but we neutralized it, and I informed the other officer who was driving the Mercedes-Benz not to follow that car from there. So I'm the one who escorted them to the hospital. From Central Prison, I took them until the hospital, Your Worship. Your Worship, the biggest fear that we were having at that time is we believed Mr. Willemse was most probably, his sickness, we believed it was self-induced because he did not take his prescribed medicines. And our biggest fear, Your Worship, in every case, especially for where you have a suspect that has dual nationality or a foreigner, Your Worship, and I'm not saying he's a foreigner, I'm just saying in general, the biggest risk that we face is for that suspect to flee to the other country. So meaning, Your Worship, we were on alert to make sure that Mr. Willemse does not escape. Even guarding, Your Worship, we made sure that he was guarded by 2 officers, if not 3. Your Worship, and I'm saying so because there were a number of variables, Your Worship. On that same day, we had just given the debit cards that was in one of the phones of Mr. Willemse, his debit cards for the bank, and as well as the vehicle. So, Your Worship, law enforcement, we needed to think ahead. We have just given the vehicle, we have just given the person the means. So, and hence, we were on alert. So, any little thing, Your Worship, we were taking it very serious.
And the cards, the debit cards to who?
They were returned to his sister. Your Worship, I know she has been here at court. I didn't see her today, but that was in consultation with Mr. Willemse and his lawyer.
All right. Now, what happened when you went to the hospital? What happened to the Mercedes-Benz?
They didn't follow, Your Worship. We released them right there at the prisons.
Did you, without mentioning a name, did you establish if that reservist had any relationship to any of the accused persons, whether Mr. Willemse or any other accused person?
Your Worship, we did. Without mentioning names, Your Worship, we know that the concerned staff member, Your Worship, had relations. Your Worship, why I'm mentioning so, one of the accused persons in this case is also a reservist, Mr. Austin Elindi. So we did a bit of intelligence gathering, but without really disclosing any further. That is where I'll leave it, Your Worship.
I just want to hear your comment that there was perhaps a question will be asked to you that why was that not put to Mr. Mulunga or any other accused person if that specific person is related to an accused person in the initial bail application for the other 6 applicants? What is your comment?
Your Worship.
That aspect of the Mercedes-Benz.
Your Worship, I believe it was Mr. Willemse who was going to the hospital. So there was no connection to the hospital incident of Mr. Willemse to Mr. Mulunga. It's not like we found some other peripheral evidence to say Mr. Mulunga had organized this and so forth and so on. I believe, Your Worship, maybe that is the only reason why it could not have been brought.
Let's deal with the grounds of objection before I get back to the invoices, those 3 invoices that we have dispensed with. As you are standing here, what is your stance? Let me start there. With regard to the applicant being granted bail, what is your position?
Our position is to oppose bail from being granted, to Mr. Willemse.
And so that you won't be caught by ambush, what about any conditions? If anyone was to suggest conditions to you and say, well, what if conditions are imposed? Well, what is your position with regard to that?
Our position remains the same, is to oppose bail. And therefore, we are not suggesting any conditions.
All right, let's start with the first ground on which we opposing bail. The first ground being the one of the risk of absconding, in that if the accused person granted bail will abscond. What is your comment around that aspect?
Your Worship, you can see even from the day one when we arrested Mr. Willemse, that has been one of the highest risks that we have as far as our suspects are concerned. Specifically because he has two nationalities, the Namibian and South African. He's been living in South Africa. The risk of abscondment or the appetite, Your Worship, we believe it's very high. As I indicated in the evidence, Your Worship, we knew that he has been sending money to South Africa. We knew that he has accounts in South Africa. Your Worship, meaning it's easy for one to move because there's no other considerations of going to apply for citizenship there. It's just to move and you are back home. At the time, Your Worship, we knew that he was having two properties, but we heard he sold them. If he sold them, it means that money is still in South Africa there, Your Worship. Meaning it's easy to transition. So that risk, Your Worship, is there, very high, and it remains high, high on our diaries. Hence, Your Worship, the fear also of even escaping was very high.
If you were to be asked, perhaps you'll be asked this question to say, well, there is no law that prohibits the accused person from being a dual national of Namibia or of any other country, and that applies to the accused. What is your comment?
Well, although there is no law that restricts dual citizenship, we believe the charges which are before which Mr. Willemse is facing are serious charges. And all we are doing is upholding the very laws of this country to ensure that Mr. Willemse, stand trial and, and the only way we can do that is to make sure that he is in custody, because that risk of evading justice is very high.
Let's move to another ground. Oh yes, just before I proceed, the passports of the accused, where are they? Passports, the Namibian ID and South African ID.
Your Worship, we have in our possession the two passports of Mr. Willemse. They are all still valid. It's some of the documentations that we seized from him, Your Worship, on the date he was arrested, to make sure that, at least that risk of crossing back into Botswana, it's not there. I believe his Namibian ID, it's among his properties, and so is the South African ID, which I had handed to his defense lawyer.
Are you saying the passport and the ID are with the counsel for the applicant?
No, Your Worship.
Oh.
The Namibian ID must be with Mr. Willemse. We didn't take it.
Oh.
And the South African ID, I had handed it to Advocate Isa.
All right, let's proceed to the other ground, that there is a risk of interfering with the investigation or the witnesses. What is your position there?
Your Worship, interference with investigations remain high. This is not a simple case. This is a complex case involving money laundering. And when we are talking about money laundering, we are talking about assets that were even, acquired, with some of the proceeds from these funds. We are talking about complex transactions, Your Worship. We know that some of the money had left Namibia, was repatriated to South Africa. Part of our investigations, Your Worship, it was also to see what else is there. So interference with investigations, Your Worship, at this point in time is limitless, and therefore, from the side of investigations, we feel that is one of the grounds that the court must seriously consider, because it's not one accused person involved. Multiple individuals are involved. Multiple transactions were concluded, which makes it complex.
The third ground, that it will not be in the interest of the public or the administration of justice if bail is granted. And before you comment, I just want to alert you to the fact that when the applicant testified, he says NAMCOR Trading and Distribution, for which he was employed, he says it's a private entity and not a public entity, because it's a subsidiary of the parent company NAMCOR. Yes, but I want you to proceed to answer that question, taking that into account. The interest of the public or the administration of justice?
Your Worship, I believe every offense that is committed in this country is a serious offense, especially when it comes to money laundering, fraud, corruption in this regard. NAMCOR Holding is a public enterprise. And we know that the trading, NAMCOR Trading and Distribution, is registered as a private company. But its primary duties, Your Worship, is to carry on with the business of its parent company, which is NAMCOR Holdings. It cannot be divorced, Your Worship, from the affairs of the holdings. At some point, NAMCOR Holding is receiving government levies, and these levies are even, the benefits thereof, they are even going to the trading.
Yes, with regard to the levies, I think perhaps just to enlighten us, what did you uncover in terms of the levies? What do you mean? And I'm asking this question bearing in mind of the debate of public versus private company. But you can explain.
Your Worship, although we didn't dive deep into the levies, we did obtain evidence which indicates that NAMCOR Holding used to receive bailouts from government, and so did they used to receive fuel levies also. Meaning, these levies, they get distributed among others to the trading, to assist the operations there.
Yes. If you were to be asked that, look, there have not been any public demonstrations, and therefore there is no interest of the public with regard to that aspect, or neither the administration of justice. What is your comment?
Your Worship, I believe the public, they are concerned. If they are not concerned, they should be. Your Worship, looking at the value that is involved in this case, looking at the level of the activities involving money laundering that was exercised in this case. So, Your Worship, even if there was no demonstrations, this has been widely covered by the media. The amounts are high. It's a subsidiary of a public enterprise. It's not like some public entities came and fund the operations of that public, of the subsidiary. It was the government through the holding company. So, and those assets needs to be looked out for. Everybody should be concerned, because fuel, we all pay for fuel, and it's those levies that we are talking about.
And before I pack that aspect, And what about the administration of justice, if you have a comment there?
Your Worship, we believe it will be in the interest of the administration of justice to ensure that the accused persons are remanded in custody or they are denied bail. Like in the other cases of equally serious values. These are not 2 or 3 charges where people has been charged with this or that. We are talking about at least $400 million that has been lost. So in the administration of justice, Your Worship, we believe the court should side with the state, with our evidence here, and deny Mr. Willemse bail.
Yes, there is also another aspect that relates to the strength of the state's case. What is your comment? How strong is the case of the state against the applicant, Mr. Willemse?
Your Worship, the evidence which I have presented before this court has demonstrated the strength of the state's case, in a sense that we know there were transactions concluded between staff members of NAMCOR. In fact, there was a conspiracy which dates back to 2021, which resulted into the supply of fuel. So, Your Worship, our position is the same. The seriousness of this is serious. And those charges, they are very strong, Your Worship. Otherwise, there's no way, Your Worship, we would have brought this matter before the court if these charges were not serious.
In fact, there have been comments made to the effect that, well, you cannot have a strong case on weak charges and so forth and so on. A lot of comments were made, but just... Okay.
Yes, Mr.
All right.
Mulungwe?
Okay, yeah, I'll ask it differently. What will your comment be if someone says, well, the manner in which the charges are drafted, therefore we do not have a strong case because there are errors and here and there? What is your comment?
Your Worship, I would say that the charges, firstly, is the responsibility of the prosecution team, whereas ours is to collect and bring evidence. At the same time, Your Worship, I would also say that these were preliminary charges. I believe indictments containing full details and properly rehearsed charges would still be done by the Office of the Prosecutor General.
So is there a strong case against the applicant?
Your Worship, we definitely believe there is strong evidence against all the accused persons in this case, including Mr. Willemse. Your Worship, we believe the evidence we have, it's very strong.
There is another ground, the last one, that relates to that there are other suspects still to be arrested. What is your comment there?
Your Worship, as I indicated in the evidence which I provided between yesterday and today, the matter is still being investigated. Unfortunately, Your Worship, the bail proceedings has kept us a little bit on our knees. There are still suspects at large, including the one that we believe is out of the country, Your Worship. And we are trying to do our best in terms of from the investigation side to ensure that all suspects are arrested. And Your Worship, is not only suspects, there's few issues here and there that we need to be finalized, but still about a number of suspects.
Officer.
Yes. If there is just one aspect that I forgot to ask you with regard to the risk of interfering with investigations, but more specifically, if you be asked, how much more time do you still need to investigate? And secondly, if you be asked, if you're able to comment, you can, what part of your investigations is still outstanding? So firstly, how much time do you need to still investigate? And secondly, what aspect of your investigations do you still need to complete?
Your Worship, although it's a bit difficult to provide the turnaround times as to when we can complete the investigations, what I can assure the court is, looking at how much work we have done from the day we started investigating this case to where we are, we have achieved a lot. And I believe, given, all the resources, given all, and when I'm talking about the resources, it's the staff members, I believe in a couple of months we could be finalizing these investigations. Of course, we don't know how the other parties, outside the country can assist us, but the local investigations, at least 4 to 5 months we should be done.
Now, Mr. Inamba, before I get back to the those invoices that we had put on hold, is there anything that you want to inform the court with regard to the involvement of Mr. Willemse? Firstly, let me be specific with regard to the assets that he has in South Africa. That is, it is to be specific, and then generally also with regard to him being a candidate for bail.
Your Worship, it's difficult to ascertain how much assets is Mr. Willemse having in South Africa, but we know that he has assets. And even so, Your Worship, if he had sold them, as he indicated, then it means he has instant cash which is available in South Africa, which makes him flight risk, because the cash is available from, as proceeds of those assets which were acquired. Part of the finance was from the money that came out from NAMCOR. As far as Mr. Willemse being a candidate for bail, Your Worship, I believe what I have put on record is sufficient to demonstrate that our position is that he stays in custody pending finalization of investigations, because of the complexities of the nature of the transactions.
There is a document on page 381 of the second bundle, the last page. It's an invoice, Parkwood Petroleum Logistics of 1,040,000. Did you ever come across that invoice there?
I'm seeing it for the first time, Your Worship.
And in fact, if we go to page 355 of that same document, are you there?
I'm there.
355. Yes, there's a transaction of 21 July 2022, which says Eco Trading C cross-border transfer. That amount is 1,040,000. Now,
I see.
Now, I just wanted to find out from you. I've asked you, and I've also asked the accused person with regard to any invoices or documentation of anything that he was doing, and so far that is the only invoice that he was able to provide. I just want to get your comment with regard to that document, seeing that it's also dated 20 July 2022. Now my interest is with regard to everything else. He has not been able to provide an invoice, and the only invoice that we have is that one on page 381.
Your Worship, although I cannot confirm the legitimacy of the invoice, our evidence has shown that Mr. Willemse was very much instrumental into the acquisition of the assets by NAMCOR from Enacon. We have demonstrated in terms of the evidence that his involvement, as far as we can prove, it dates back to April 2022. And this is not a coincidence, Your Worship, that the deal is signed. The asset purchase agreement is signed on the 19th of July by NAMCOR. The payment is made on the same day, on the 19th. And then from there on the 20th, there's an invoice from from Parkwood to Eco Trading. Your Worship, we are saying this money is part of the money which originally came from NAMCOR, of which Mr. Willemse was an employee at all time when this was happening. So the description and the invoice, Your Worship, we believe has been fabricated, because in terms of the preliminary financial analysis that we have done, these transactions, including in his personal account, only started after the asset purchase agreement.
Your Worship, concluding, but there is just that one aspect that I needed to get to. I've seen that when the copies were made, I think there was an omission to attach those invoices to those documents that I was dealing with, and I see it's nearly 4, and I wanted to conclude today, but to get to the documents, and then if I have to ask for an adjournment, but I do not think we'll finish. So my suggestion, if the court is amenable to that, is that we proceed tomorrow. I'm not sure if we start at 9 or 10, so that at least maybe tomorrow counsel can proceed with the cross-examination.
Just maybe 2 cents. I indicated to the court yesterday that we received this document F2 and F1 late last night when it was emailed to us. Obviously, we know that at that time the accused person was in Hindu Correctional Services. We had not had the chance to consult with him regarding these documents. So I was hoping that my learned friend could finish today. So we can ask the court if we can start at maybe 11 tomorrow. And then I can just quickly have time to consult on these documents. The reason why I wanted to ask that is because prison authorities do not allow you, whether you are a lawyer, the president, or whoever, after 3:30, they close the doors. You're not getting in there. So I'm sure by now they will go straight to prison, and that will then also not have a chance to to consult with the client. So I thought maybe 11 o'clock, but I now hear my learned friend says it still has to. I don't know how long it will be. I assume it's only the invoices. And then maybe just ask for, we can start at 11, and then when he starts, then we finish. At 10:30 will also be okay. I see my learned friend want to get myself ready to start with the cross-examination.
I think 11 will be fine because I still have C-court to dispose of.
Yes.
And there are persons in custody who wish to plead. So I would probably need 1 to 2 hours for that. So
11 o'clock will be perfect for me.
we will then
Your Worship, I think the witness was indicating something.
Yes, Your Worship. The invoices are quite a lot, and I know they would not be able to be sent via email. There is an electronic copy with Ms. Hinda already. Maybe if they can just make plans to get that copy, because emailing them, the file sizes is quite enormous.
Just maybe also while we're on that invoices, it seems to me that what is presented to you is not everything presented to you, because we have emails, and we would also like to have the thread of the email sent to us, because it seems to me that only certain emails were handpicked by Mr. Inambao for discovery. So maybe for the court to get a fuller picture as to what was discussed earlier, because if you read the emails, it says, as we have discussed. So I would assume there were previous emails that led to that email. I'm just afraid that my learned friend wanted to focus on something as the credit agreement on one specific aspect. So if my learned friend can maybe just send us the thread of that day that make reference to that discussion, so we can ask Mr. Inambao some questions.
Advocate?
Yes, it's in order. I don't think there is anything we want to conceal. I'll give them everything that they need. In fact, I'll do it today before
All right,
5.
so then the email thread will be disclosed to the defense. We will then adjourn. The matter will proceed tomorrow, that is the 17th day of September at 11 a.m. Accused, please stand up. You are remanded in custody. You may adjourn.